All right, let's talk about something really important, but honestly, something that gets missed all the time when you're planning a solar system: your peak load. This one little detail is what separates a system that just works from one that works when you absolutely need it to.
So let's meet Sarah. She's done her homework. She has meticulously planned her off-grid solar system, figuring out her daily energy needs down to the watt. But as she's sitting there with her morning coffee, there's this one question nagging at her, a question that could make or break the whole project.
And there it is. That's the million-dollar question, right? What happens when the oven, the washing machine, the kettle, what happens when it all kicks on at the same time? See, most people plan for their average use, but these sudden power surges, these peaks, that's the real test of a system's strength. You know, this whole challenge brings to mind a piece of ancient wisdom from Proverbs. It really frames this perfectly. It's all about the difference between just simple planning and truly prudent preparation. A simple plan looks great on paper, but a wise plan is ready for those moments of intense demand.
So let's get on the same page. What exactly is a peak load? Well, it's the single busiest moment for your entire electrical system. It's the absolute maximum power you draw at any one time. We're not talking about the total energy you use over a whole day, but the demand in a single instant. And we measure that in kilowatts.
This is probably the best way to think about it. Your stored energy, your kilowatt hours, that's like the total amount of water you have stored in a big tank. But your power, your kilowatts, that's how fast the water can actually rush out of the tap. You could have a completely full tank, but if you've only got a tiny little tap, you're only ever going to get a trickle. Okay, let's jump back into Sarah's world for a second. Picture a pretty typical evening, right? She's making dinner, the oven's on, the hob is heating up. Then she flicks the switch on the kettle, and right at that same moment, the washing machine starts its spin cycle.
And boom, in that instant, her cabin's demand for power just shot through the roof. For a few minutes, all those appliances were pulling over 8 kilowatts of power. It was just a short burst, sure, but a massive, massive strain on her system. And here is the absolute crucial point. A standard 5 kilowatt system would have just given up. It would have immediately overloaded and shut right down. It wouldn't matter one bit that her batteries were 100% full. The system just couldn't deliver that energy fast enough to meet that 8 kilowatt surge.
So why does that happen? Well, your system has two critical gatekeepers. First, you've got the battery, which stores all the energy. Then you have the inverter, which takes that stored DC power and converts it into the AC power your house can actually use. The thing is, both of these have hard limits on how much power they can handle at once. Let's talk about the battery's speed limit for a second. It's called the C rate. For most high-quality home batteries, you're looking at a C rate of 0.5. What that means is a 10 kilowatt-hour battery can safely push out 5 kilowatts of power. Trying to go any faster creates a ton of heat and stress, and that dramatically shortens the battery's life. It's really all about finding that sweet spot, that perfect balance. And we have to plan for the future because, and this is a big one, all batteries degrade. They lose capacity over time. As you can see here, after about a decade of use, a typical lithium battery is only going to hold around 70% of the energy it could when it was brand new. This isn't a flaw, it's just the reality of the technology. Now, let's connect that degradation directly to power output. That 10 kilowatt-hour battery that gave you a solid 5 kilowatts on day one, well, 10 years down the road, it can only manage about 3.5 kilowatts. Your peak load capability has shrunk by 30%. All of a sudden, your 5 kilowatt inverter is being starved for power by an aging battery. So this is the exact choice Sarah was facing. The simple choice was a 10 kilowatt-hour battery. It would work perfectly for a little while. But the wise choice was a 15 kilowatt-hour battery. And this wasn't about luxury. It was a strategic move to make sure that even after a decade of natural degradation, her system could still reliably deliver the 5 kilowatts of power she needs. You know, ignoring your peak load is just a recipe for frustration. You're looking at constant system overloads, circuits tripping all the time, appliances just shutting off right in the middle of a cycle, and worst of all, you're putting so much stress on your batteries that you're actually shortening their lifespan. But when you plan for those peaks, it's a completely different experience. Your power is stable, it's reliable. Your expensive components run cooler because they're not constantly being pushed to their absolute limits. Your batteries last longer. And the biggest benefit of all, you get genuine peace of mind. In the end, Sarah made that wise choice.
She built a resilient system, one that could handle not just her average day, but her busiest moments too. It's a system she designed for today and for 10 years from now. And that, right there, is true stewardship of your home, your resources, and your future.
So, as we wrap this up, I want you to ask yourself, is your plan built just for that slow, predictable drip of daily use? Or is it truly ready to handle the sudden, inevitable surge? Because that's where real energy independence begins, with wisdom. Thanks for tuning in.